most employees don't show up caring about a vision, caring about a core purpose, caring about core values. They show up caring about bringing money home to take care of their kids. When you're in Europe and you meet an entrepreneur and they say, "What do you do?" They don't mean, "What do you do to make money?" They mean, "What do you do for fun? What do you do on weekends?"
You've also been somebody who's grown organizations from 2 million to 100 million. And may I be fair enough to say that probably that was done with a place of obsession, focus, probably not taking care of your health as well. Dare I say even a dysfunctional obsession with growth and scaling. Sometimes we need to do that, but then we also need to go back. I'm curious about that aspect.
Yeah, I think I could have been more effective in scaling the company, more effective as a leader, had I been showing up as a better human.
Everyone, welcome back to the Selling with Love podcast. I'm bringing a returning guest who's been on the show so many times. I love everything that he teaches, from meeting him at a conference from HubSpot. I must be a decade ago, talking about meetings suck, but the man has written books around how to have a vivid vision, how to double, how to be an operator, how to be someone who helps scale organizations. And I've always brought him onto the show because he does understand and appreciate the power of sales. We've had conversations around that. We've also talked about how we need to have teams work together. And I just want to have a candid conversation to just see what are the latest trends we're seeing in the world of being an entrepreneur, building a business. What are the limitations that most people are finding? And just what's the journey he's also been on, as he's himself an author who's going out and building a business himself. Cameron, Herold, welcome back to the show. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Jason, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I'll tell you, you were somebody who, it was 10 or 12 years ago. I remember, I think it might have even been longer than that. I'll bet you started pushing me around 2011 to get involved in A-Fest, because I think I was still living...
hold on. I started at Mind Valley in 2013, so it can't be before that. I might have tried to get you to other things.
Okay. So I was trying to remember where I was sitting, and I thought I was sitting at my old home but you were a very persistent early stage guy who you introduced me to Mind Valley, introduced me to Vision. And I was saying before I even went live that there was a couple of big misses, and one of my big misses was not listening to you in the early days of going to something called A-Fest. You said, well, there's all these groups people could go to. There are now, but back in those days, there weren't. And I think now you have to kind of cut through the clutter and decide which are the critical few events to go to, which are the ones that you kind of need to be at. And I think in some cases, entrepreneurs should be at industry events and events that are not in their industry, where they can kind of get ideas from outside. I call it ideas having sex, that you take ideas from three people and those ideas spawn into something that you're looking for. And sometimes when you're just in your industry at a trade association kind of event, you're hearing the noise that everybody's talking about, but you're not getting that more global perspective. And that's the other part, is more of a global perspective. Go and get ideas from outside of your country. I've been doing a lot of events now in Asia and the Middle East and Europe, and I get a very different flavor and a very different lens on business from going to events in Turkey, Norway, Dubai, England, Montenegro, all Ibiza in Spain, like all in the last 12 months, I've gone to events in multiple countries, and I get a very different lens on the world from that.
So Cameron, what I love is that you've been in this business world for quite a while, but you've also dipped your feet into that personal growth world, and that's changed a lot, as you've mentioned. So for someone who is an entrepreneur, who's very focused on his industry, what's the reason in some of the things you've gotten to be able to get from the personal growth field that has helped you in the business itself?
Wow. I think for me, the biggest part is that personal growth is becoming a better human and a better leader, which allows you to then influence and get results through others, right? My job as a CEO or a founder, or even when I played the COO role, my job was to get results through others. My job was to grow people. And if I can't develop myself and grow as a better leader and a better person, I'm missing that huge opportunity to create that ripple effect with others. So, there's an old Latin saying of a healthy mind and a healthy body. There's that component as well. Even just slightly before you and I met, which was 12 years ago, if I roll the camera back 14 years ago, if I showed you a photo, it would scare the shit out of you. I weighed 42 pounds heavier than I do today. So 20 kilos heavier than I do today. I was smoking. I looked like crap. I wasn't healthy, wasn't really that happy. And here I was showing up, trying to lead and influence others, not being my best self. And I still now have this, I've seen photos of you. You look photoshopped in real life. It's disgusting. I'm like, really? Put your shirt back on. That's just not fair. But there's something about taking care of your mind, taking care of your body, taking care of your soul, taking care of your heart that then allows you to show up grounded, more confident, more centered, and being able to influence others. And not from a necessarily like a, here I am in the gym, here I am showing off from an Instagram way, but just showing up in a better way. So, and then the second part of that is, and I just got a tattoo about a year ago. It's in Hindi, but it says walking each other home. And it's just a reminder to me from Ram Dass that none of this shit actually matters. Like the death rate is still 100%. We're all going to die. And I may as well enjoy the journey that I'm on and enjoy the fact that what I'm doing to make money is only one small part of me as a human and getting to enjoy this journey. So something around personal growth is also just me being selfish and saying, I want to have a great life. I want to enjoy the time that I'm on this planet. I read something the other day. This is crazy. I'm like maybe new to learning this, but do you know that there are more planets in the universe, solar system, whatever the bigger thing is, there's more planets than there are grains of sand on Earth?
Yeah.
What the fuck? That doesn't even make sense. Like there's more grains of sand in Byron Bay than I can even imagine. We're such an insignificant speck in this whole universe, solar system, whatever. Gotta learn which is bigger of the two. Why are we so worried about make money, make money, make money when I don't even know why we're really even here? So there's something about just becoming personal growth is just part of me enjoying my journey and the time that I get on this planet.
Cameron, there's something this is an interesting thing that I think about, which is, you say this advice, and you've also been somebody who's grown organizations from 2 million to 100 million, and that has created a massive ripple of effectiveness, provided a lot of positive, employment for a lot of people. There's been a flow of money from you doing that. And may I be fair enough to say that probably that was done with a place of obsession, focus, probably not taking care of your health as well. But the net result of you being in this quote unquote obsessive, I don't know if this is a fair term because I don't know the story, but dare I say even a dysfunctional obsession with growth and scaling had a positive net on the world, that it's like sometimes we need to do that, but then we
No.
also need to go back. I'm curious about that aspect.
Yeah, a really, really good question. I think I could have done, by the way, that was the fourth company that I scaled. 1-800 Got Junk, and I left 18 years ago, was the fourth company that I grew to almost 100 million in revenue. It was 106 million when I left. I think I could have been more effective in scaling the company, more effective as a leader, built a better brand, a better culture, had I been showing up as a better human. I think I could have done
Oh,
it as well. So I think I can stay very maniacal. You're talking about being kind of a monomaniac with a mission, right? That maniacal focus on building a business. But in my spare time, instead of sitting on the couch eating potato chips and watching cooking shows, I could have been sitting on the couch eating vegetables and watching stuff about personal growth, or I could have been out exercising. Instead of meeting with my employees for a beer, I could have been meeting with my employees for a hike. So I think I know that I could have done both. And I think it's just more of a mindset now. Something else happens when you have children. It forces you into a balance and a recalibration. I was talking to well, and the woman I'm gonna joke about. She's dating Peter Kell right now, and she's an influencer. This very pretty woman. She was talking about how her perfect morning, making matcha and having yoga and doing her mindfulness and her breath, meditation. I'm like, and you don't have kids who showed up and woke you up at 7 o'clock in the morning in bed, do you? And she's like, good point. And I think it's very easy for us as, you know, Gen Y, Gen Z, or even older people that are single to talk about how to have the perfect life. Your perfect life is obliterated when you have 2 or 3 screaming little kids that need you. So you then learn balance. It's one of the reasons why I think, frankly, women that have kids are better leaders than women or guys who are single, because they
Mm.
don't understand how to balance everything else in their life, how to say no, and how to focus on the critical few things. So yeah, I think I could have built a much better business, a much bigger business, a much more successful business, had I been focused on building a better and more successful me at the same time.
I think a mutual friend of ours, Ryan Dice, had his children very early, and a lot of
Yeah, yeah,
people were
yeah.
like, "Oh my God, that's probably going to make you not as successful as those who are just like single and grinding." But yet, what you're speaking about, that skill set, has not stopped them from doing incredible things.
Not at all. I was chatting with Ryan just about 2 weeks ago. He and I did a one-on-one Zoom call for an hour just to kind of share ideas on how to grow each other's masterminds communities. Yeah, very, very good example of that. And there's many entrepreneurs out there who are focused on, one that I used to coach is Marcelo Claret, who is the CEO of Sprint. He ended up being on the board of Google. He was the interim CEO of WeWork when it crashed. He had to come in to kind of turn it around and try to save it. He was on the board of SoftBank. He's worth $1 billion currently because he built and sold his own company. Marcelo is a great dad, very present with his kids, very present with his wife, Jordan, very present with like family activities. And he manages his calendar on 5-minute increments. But this guy does not mess around. There's no fluff. There's no wasted time, right? So his maniacal focus is around what matters to the exclusion of all the other stuff that we just tend to get out of habit and being busy, right? And I think
Mm,
often people are busy being busy. It's like that fly. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to work hard and try to get out that window, and the flies end up dead on the windowsill. But if you step back a little bit, maybe it's because you're out for a run or you're out for a hike or you're playing golf and you're disconnected from your business, and you think and you go, I got to go back and focus on this. And it's sometimes that time away being a healthy individual that gives you the perspective to be maniacal and going in the right direction. There's no point in working 100 miles an hour going the wrong way.
hmm. I love I love this. And one of the things I want to also touch on is that you've actually did a lot of your work both in Canada and in US, and you mentioned that a lot of the places you would go and learn was actually in North America. And you went out and started exploring how to connect in places around the world.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know what are some of the top insights you've been able to gather when you stepped out of the American bubble or North American bubble that might be very useful for people that are still stuck passportless.
Interesting. So we'll go get a passport.
Yeah.
So I've built companies in 3 countries. So I built companies in Canada, the United States, and Australia. And then when I left 1-800-GOT-JUNK 18 years ago, I started coaching entrepreneurs for the most part in North America for the first 5 years. Then I started coaching some entrepreneurs in Australia, in Germany, in Switzerland, in Saudi Arabia, Qatar. So I started getting this global India, started getting this global lens. And then I got paid to speak in 29 different countries. So I was paid to speak to groups of entrepreneurs in these 29 countries. And around 2013, when you and I met, I kind of slowly started to get the chip off my shoulder of trying to be the smartest person in the room. And I started to just show up in the room and yes, speak, but also then ask questions and learn. And that was around 2013, 2014 was where I really started to learn about how businesses operated in the rest of the world, sometimes better than we do in North America, sometimes just differently in North America. So I think some of the stuff that I've learned now over the years from not only going to the mastermind events in I've probably gone to masterminds now in about 10 countries, like Uganda, Bhutan, Papua New Guinea, Vietnam, Laos, Montenegro, Norway. I could rattle off a dozen countries where I've attended and been in the room, not even speaking, just being there, and then getting that global lens, and then coaching entrepreneurs. I've learned about being more open, more empathetic. I've learned that for the most part, most employees don't show up caring about a vision, caring about a core purpose, caring about core values. They show up caring about bringing money home to take care of their kids. They show up about showing up and going home and taking care of their mom who is sick that night. So they actually have their own fears and their own insecurities and their own needs is number one. Secondly, is most global humans care more about having a life than they do about their 9 to 5 job. When you're in Europe and you meet an entrepreneur and they say, "What do you do?" They don't mean, "What do you do to make money?" They mean, "What do you do for fun? What do you do on weekends?" So when you answer and you go, "Oh, I run this business," they're like, "No, no, no." I'm like, "Oh, I like hiking and I like skiing and I like golf." Like, "Yeah, do you play pickleball?" Like, they actually care about all the stuff, what festivals you're going to and what you're reading and what books, like they care about who you are and what you're excited about more than they care about making money. And and they're still able to build these very successful businesses and in some cases empires, but that's not what they show up for or obsess about. So they show up connecting with each other first. And they really, I had a client that I was coaching in Kenya who every Thursday would give a bag of food to his 400 employees to take home to the families because he knew that if he paid them a little bit more, they would just spend it on, gambling or alcohol or cigarettes. But if he gave them a bag of grain and a bag of corn and a bag of rice and a bag of staples, they would take it home and give it to their spouse. So he understood how to kind of satisfy Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I've seen in North America where people are like, oh yeah, we're a great company. We give 3 weeks vacation. I'm like, 3 weeks? Europeans are 5 or 6 weeks. Australia's 5 or 6 weeks. That's like basic. You're a shitty company in Australia if you give 4. And you're an amazing company in the US if you give 3. So I've seen that you can focus on caring about employees and caring about life and build a better company. And
Mm.
sometimes it's just because people show up refreshed or they show up feeling cared about. If you care more about your employees' personal dreams and personal lives and fears and insecurities and bucket lists, they'll show up caring about the company more than they ever have because you care about them more than anyone else has. I've noticed that.
Cameron, this makes me want to go into a train of thought. Is something I'm personally encountering with the types of companies I usually work with, which are usually in the like $1 to $3 million range. And what I notice is that they're usually a ragtag group of people that got
Yeah.
together, found product market fit.
Yeah.
They scaled maybe to that level, and it's driven by, the leader, maybe a friend that are kind of running this together. And there's no talks about vacation time. There's no HR department. And it's like everybody's just going in and everybody's kind of aligned. They want to make this thing grow. But it hits like an upper limit
Yeah.
where it's almost like now it needs to change how that works. And I'd be curious if this is a common thing you've noticed when companies reach that point. And what are some of the initial things people need to think about once they've reached that level of scale where now we got too many people here and not everyone we need to bring in are all in drinking the Kool-Aid.
So companies are like people. People grow and evolve as they age. So how old are you?
I'm 37.
Okay, perfect. So when you were 7 years old, you were still Jason Mark Campbell.
Correct.
When you were 17, you were Jason Mark Campbell. When you were 27, you were Jason Mark Campbell. I met you at about 27, and now, I met you at 25, and now you're Jason Mark Campbell at 37. You're the same person. You look a little different, but pretty much the same, right? But how would you be at leading and helping these companies as a 27-year-old? Probably okay. How about as a 17-year-old? A disaster. So why would anyone listen to you? Well, because you're not 17. So a company goes through the similar iterations where a company is an infant, a company is a teenager, a company is an adolescent, a company is an adult, a company is a mature adult, a company is a senior citizen. There's some seniors out there that have so much wisdom around life. There's some 70-year-olds who have so much wisdom around growing companies. Now, they don't necessarily understand the tech stack of today, but they can give us some wisdom around people and situational leadership and strategy that will blow our fucking minds, right? So the different iterations of growth in a company, I call it the ones and the threes. When you have 1 employee to 3 employees to 10 employees to 30 employees to 100 to 300 to 1,000, or from 100,000 in revenue to 300,000 in revenue to 1 million in revenue, 3 million, 10 million, 30, okay? So when you start a company, it's you, right? It's Bob or Kelly. It's me. I got my company name. I'm going to go and hire a couple of people to help me out, right? Usually get a couple of people that are just, yeah, I'll help you out and I can do a bunch of stuff, right? Jack of all trades, master of none. Love you. You're a good friend. Let's go do this. Let's build this thing together. And then you go from 3 people to 10. And now someone or a couple of people are managing some people for you. So it's the entrepreneur with 1 or 2 managers managing the other 7 or 8 people, right? Now you have to get results through people. You have to manage through that one layer. And then you get to 30 people, you have a management team. You've got 5 or 6 people managing the 30. You're managing 5 or 6, managing the 30 people. Now you've got a management team. More often than not, when you have 30 people, management team of 5 or 6, those managers are probably running their first or at best second business, first or second time managing people, meaning it's all new to them. Running meetings is new to them. Doing strategy is new to them. Looking at budgets is new to them. Leading people is new to them. They might understand the concepts. Maybe they studied it in business school. Maybe they read a book. But for all intents and purposes, it's the first time they've done this stuff. So they're trying, they're learning from failure. They're giving it their best shot. None of them have really done it. They're not seasoned. When you go from 30 to 100 people, You're big enough that you can afford to have your first leadership team. People that have led companies, they've failed already. They've gone through a public offering. Maybe they're not necessarily public leadership team, right? But they've done this before. They got this. At the 300 people mark, these are seasoned leaders. They've already been there. They've already done this. You don't need to tell them anything what to do. They're showing up. They're like, got it. Point me in the direction. Let's check in every month. We're good. They have a level of autonomy. They have a level of P&L responsibility. They bring strategy into the business. They're showing up with partners and employees that used to work with them over the last 10 years that can come into the company. So it just gets a little bit easier. But the death zone is 10 to 100 employees. Because
Mhm.
what happens is those early stage junior managers tend to think that the answer to every problem is hire more people. And
Mhm.
that's really never the answer to the problem. They're ending up building in more complexity. They don't like saying no. They're like, Kelly wants to come to the meeting too, so we let her come instead of saying, no, Kelly, we're okay with hurting her feelings a little bit because we actually want her focusing on the core project she should be doing. And it's this level of business acumen, this level of kind of wisdom that just takes some time. So you kind of bumble through that death zone. The companies that can get from the 10 to 100 profitably are usually the ones that can continue to scale from the 100 to the 1,000, right?
Cameron, I feel like you've seen this before. Is this maybe where you've specialized? Because my God, like that's so clear. That
Well,
makes so much sense.
yeah, I was part of a company way prior to 1-800 Got Junk. In fact, the first company that I'm really known for scaling was back in the 80s and early 90s was called College Pro Painters. And
Yeah.
College Pro became the largest residential house painting company on the planet. I opened the West Coast of the United States for College Pro, opened up Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. I hired Kimball Musk, Elon's younger brother, back in 1993 to work for me. His cousin Peter Rive, who built Solar City, I hired him. So I was hiring people. I'd coached 120 entrepreneurs before 1993. So business coaching didn't even start until 1993, and I'd already coached 120 entrepreneurs by that point. So I kind of had a lens to this entrepreneurial world very, very early on. And when we were building College Pro, we only had 4 months to do $64 million in house painting revenue. We only obsessively focused on the critical few things. We just kind of said no to everything else. So we got a lot of very early stage leadership training. I got very lucky with that. Where I break down is corporate. I would be horrible in 1,000-person company, right? I just don't play well in that matrix decision making, slower, a little bit more strategic, cross-functional teams. I'm more of a, hire the people, grow the people, let's go. Minimum viable everything, not minimum viable product, minimum viable everything. Just get it done and get it out the door. That starts to break down in the corporate world. But yeah, I've seen this a gazillion times.
That's fun. Like, because, but it's such, like, to me, I hear these stories and I get excited. And one of the things that seems to be, you already credited your luck to it, is like you found yourself being able to be finding the right instructions as a like leadership development. Like, what were some of the key skill sets that came towards you or that you got a grasp on that made you very successful, even from the beginning?
Yeah, I know what it was. It was College Pro Painters. College Pro was my real world MBA, right? I was a franchisee when I was 20 years old. I had a franchise of this house painting business, College Pro. I was trained on how to hire people, how to train them, how to do time management, financial management, sales and marketing, production. So I was trained on how to run a business, and I had 12 employees when I was 20, right? Working for me, my business, 12 employees at 20 years old. I ran that business for 3 summers, excuse me, at College Pro. So for 3 summers in a row, I was running my own business. Then I went and worked for the head office. So starting at 23 until when I was 29, I worked at the head office of College Pro, recruiting and hiring franchisees and training those 120 franchisees how to run businesses. So I got training at stuff like situational leadership, interviewing, running effective meetings, coaching, delegation, conflict management, um, all of what I call the soft skills of leadership, right? And the stuff that most managers don't get trained in until they're a part of a big company like a General Electric or a Starbucks or, McDonald's University, Hamburger U. Entrepreneurial companies don't have that. I was very fortunate to get that at a very, very young age. And I've always called it my real world MBA.
Wow. I noticed a lot of what you've credited the important things you were doing had a lot to do with recruiting the right people, developing the right people. And
It's
I'm going
all
to add
about
a,
people.
I'm going to add a twist to this question, which is relating to how important it is to do that aspect. It seems like today we're using AI that is accelerating how we get to deploy so many things. And it's almost like we don't need as many people. We can do everything through AI. Are
Yeah.
you seeing a kind of a backlash or a kind of a Trojan horse that's being developed with a lot of people leaning into AI and scaling really rapidly, maybe not emphasizing on the people as much?
Well, I think companies at their own peril have never understood how critical it is to have the right people. You know, Jim Collins in his book Good to Great talked about getting the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and everybody in the right seat. But he didn't teach you how to interview and hire the people. We had a big saying in 1 foot high, 12-inch letters at 1-800-GOT-JUNK over the reception desk that said it's all about people. I always believed it was all about great people, right? How do you recruit, hire, train, onboard, and build the leadership of your team so that they can get results through others? So you and I both have the kind of mutual connection with Mind Valley, where you really started, I think, in your career. And I've done a lot of work with Mind Valley now globally. I was speaking at their event in Dubai called Future Human in January. Came off the stage talking to 2,500 people, and I was chatting with this guy who is 6'7". I'm 6'4", and I'm looking at this guy, and I'm like, "What do you do for fun?" And he's like, "Oh, I play beach volleyball." I'm like, "Wow, like at what level?" He's, "I play pro. Like I'm actually paid." I'm like, "Holy shit, like you're really good." I said, "Hey, for fun, if you and your beach volleyball partner played me and 5 of my teammates from high school," and he started laughing. He said, "We beat you every game." So you take 2 A players, could destroy 6 B or C players every single game. So imagine if you hired 2 people in your company and paid them $200,000 each, or hired 6 people and paid them $100,000 each. 6 people at 100,000 each, they're cheaper. I got 6 people now, we can do more, maybe, but it's costing me 600 grand. I get 2 A players, cost me 400 grand. They're going to kick my ass all day long, and they don't bring more complexity in. So what I'm always a favor of is hire A players. Now it's hire A players who use AI. You bring A
Mm,
players in who use AI, it's game over for the competitors. And now look what Sam Altman's talking about with ChatGPT, paying $1 billion signing bonus to get some key people into ChatGPT to OpenAI. He's literally buying talent. So 30 years ago, the government prevented what they called predatory pricing. They prevented big companies from going in, dropping their price to buy up a territory, to buy up a city. What we really should be preventing now is predatory hiring, because all these tech companies, all these .coms, all these publicly traded VC-funded companies are overpaying talent to buy the best talent, leaving the rest of us with Bs or Cs. Most companies that say they have As have Bs because they can't afford to get the As.
damn, that's a reality check.
It's super legit, man. When you meet real A players, it is game changing. Mind Valley is filled with really good, solid B players who are core value culture fit to the nines, right? Nines and tens on culture and core values, but probably skill set are solid Bs because he doesn't pay them what you have to pay the true As, right? So
Mm.
he's got a lot of people working really hard who care, who bleed, who like are just cult, they're in, right? Same with us at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We were solid Bs, but we cared like nobody's business. Where the game really changes is when you get true A's that are those same culture fits that the Mind Valleys and 1-800-GOT-JUNK can attract.
Which might make me want to take this conversation to turn inward, which is I think we all have a delusional self perception of being an A ourself. What's the sobering reality checks we might have to do with ourselves, or the solid things we need to investigate to become closer to an A ourselves?
Well, one is for the money that we're willing to pay people, that can change, right? So if I've got a head of marketing for any company and I brought Johnny Ives, the head of marketing for Apple in, he's going to kick their ass. But we can't afford to pay $5 million a year to have a Johnny Ives. So for the
Mm.
money that you're willing to pay, are they an A or a B? That's one sobering thing a company
Oh,
needs to
yeah.
think about. For us as individuals, though, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? When I go to these masterminds now, boy, 80% of the time, I'm like horribly average in that room of people that I'm coming to, even if I'm a speaker, right? I might be good at that one area, but there's probably people in the audience that are even better at the stuff that I'm there speaking about. So it's showing up with that humility of being able to learn. So I remember Jimmy Pattison, who was from Vancouver, BC, and Jimmy was the richest man in Western Canada. He employs more people in Western Canada than anyone except the government. Okay, very wealthy. He's probably 90 right now. And I was sitting at the Vancouver Tennis Club, and Jimmy walked in with his iPad and his MacBook and his cell phone, and I'm like, well, what's going on with an 80-year-old with his MacBook and iPhone and iPad? And he sits down across from me, kind of in the lunch area, and he's waiting. I'm like, I got to sit and watch what's going on with Jimmy. And this young girl walks in. She's about 25. And she walks up to Jimmy and she goes, Jimmy. And he goes, oh, good to see you. And he reaches up and he grabs his $50 bill. And you know, like grandparents, and they hand you money, they kind of go, chick, chick. They kind of stretch the bill out and they can hear the sound, right? And they hand you the money. Jimmy did that with the 50 and handed it to this girl. And she goes, okay, thank you. What do you want to learn? And he goes, today I want to learn about how these things talk to me. I hear these devices can talk to me. Teach me how my computer and my phone can talk to me. Here's the wealthiest man in Western Canada, arguably one of the smartest entrepreneurs in Western Canada, spending 1 hour every month with a 25-year-old who's teaching him about technology. Now, she can't do anything he can do, but he was willing to be dumb enough to learn from a 25-year-old and pay her $50 an hour to teach him some stuff that he was intrigued in. I think if humans can show up that way, going, what can I learn, as well as what can I teach, I think that's really going to be helpful for people in their careers.
This is a sobering message for myself as well, especially when I jump into organizations and some of the particular skills that I bring in is very valuable. I sometimes get into this like execution mode where I deny my own way of looking at words, learning, and putting on that humble hat, as you've mentioned. And so I want to take this message as something I integrate to being like, I can't stop learning because I'm about to face challenges that, although I can communicate very confidently, there's still things I don't know.
Yeah, so
And
what I've learned about showing up in coaching and leading organizations, when I run my COO Alliance, when I coach people, my group coaching, is I have one perspective and one set of experiences. I'm going to share those. And what else can I learn? What are you people doing? What are you guys doing? What's working? What's not working? I never argue to be right. I just want to be heard. I want to share my experiences, and then I'm completely open to hearing what your experiences are. I'm also completely open to going, and maybe some of this comes with wisdom, right? I am now, ending my 50s. I've been wrong way more often than I've been right, right? And I just saw a video by Roger Federer today, and he said he won 80% of his matches, but he lost 20% of his matches. And in the 80% of the matches that he won, he lost 47% of the points. He only won 53% of the points. He lost 50% of the time. I think it's being okay with the fact that we can make mistakes, or there's another way, or there's a better way. And there's my experience that I can bring to the table too.
Cameron, it's always a pleasure having conversations with you.
Yeah, man,
I
you
know
as well.
you're about to go into some big travels. I don't know if I think these are business travels as well, a little bit of personal as
A little
well,
bit of
but
business and personal. Yeah, we're off to Tonga tonight. We're going to go diving and swimming with the whales and work on some biohacking and some wellness for a week.
what are some of the industries or projects that are exciting for you that you're seeing on the horizon that would be a fun way for us to close this conversation?
It's all AI. It's all AI.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's autonomous vehicles. It's anything to do with what's happening with AI is just super intriguing. I really do empathize heavily with people that are in their 20s to early 40s. It's got to be a very scary time to be facing a world where everything will be done by a computer or could be done by a computer. I had someone the other day and they said, well, this job can't be done. I'm like, oh, really? But robots can do surgery, right? Like, I drove in the first Google experimental autonomous vehicle 14 years ago at TED. I have a video of me at the TED conference in a vehicle in a slalom course. What's coming with vehicles and with AI, 14% of the workforce in South Korea right now is robots, 14%. So I'm excited for what's coming. I'm excited to learn what's coming, but I'm also very empathetic to people that are starting in their career, that it's got to be a really scary time for them. So I think I'm just watching a little bit around that too. I mean, look, I don't think that there's going to be a business coach in existence in 3 to 5 years. Why would anyone pay me $4,300 an hour when they can ask Grok,
Hmm.
right? Why,
I'm
or
also
my,
a Grok user.
right, or they can ask my avatar. Like, why would you pay any coach, any business coach, any career coach, any life coach, any, therapist, any counselor? Fucking just get on Grok or get on or talk to an avatar. Like, so there's a whole world of those people that are gone. I'm intrigued
Mm.
and excited, but I'm also very empathetic to, there's going to be a lot of change happening very, very quickly.
It seems like, well, just with what you're saying now, it seems like one of the most important things that will happen is we need to be thinking more about asset ownership more than skill set. Is that like a fair statement?
I think it's more of, we need to be adaptable. We need to be able to problem solve. We need to be able to learn quickly. We need to be able to move quickly. I think, frankly, kids that are playing multi-person video games are being set
Mm.
up quite well for the future because they can adapt, they can learn, they can problem solve, they can move really quickly, they can collaborate with lots of different people. I think it's the people that are coming in going, I have a skill and I can do this forever. Yeah, you're out of a job, right? I
Mm.
talked to a driver 14 months ago or 16 months ago in Kelowna, British Columbia. He was complaining about
Great
paying,
place.
well, yeah, amazing place, but he was complaining about being an Uber driver and paying 30% of his money to Uber. I'm like, dude, in 3 years, you're out of a job. He didn't know of autonomous vehicles. I showed him a video. It scared the shit out of him. I've been driving in autonomous vehicles now in Waymos for 18 months in Scottsdale. Do you know that Waymos are doing 250,000 rides a week? And they're only operating in 4 cities right now. So so that's an industry that's gone, right? Look at
Hmm.
ChatGPT that is now literally as common as talking about Kleenex, or we've only been using it since January of 2024. We've only been using it for 18 months, not even
Oh,
2
it's
years,
less. Yeah, that's
in
right.
18 months. When something is becoming this ubiquitous and change is happening this quickly, it will literally wipe out not just jobs, but industries. So I think people have to be very adaptable. You're not going to go to a university to learn something to have a career. You're going to learn how to learn how to be flexible, to learn how to problem solve, to learn how to use tools. But you don't want to be an expert in a tool. You need to be an expert in learning how to use tools, because whatever tool you learn today is going to be gone or outdated in 24 months. So
Hmm.
you need to be good at then learning that one, at leapfrogging. So I think it's going to be adaptability, change, being vulnerable, being open to learn, and not being the, I've done it this way. I've got all this experience. Your experience is outdated, dude. You don't have 30 years experience. You have 5 years experience 6 times in a row.
Ooh, that's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
I think it'll come back to what is the most essential, is where we started this whole conversation, which is personal growth becomes one of the biggest elements now.
There's that. And none of this shit actually matters because none of us are getting out of this alive. Let's enjoy the journey.
What a journey it's been having a conversation with you, Cameron. Thank you so much for joining. This has been so much fun. All the best on your travels. Thank you for
Thank you.
popping in and sharing some more insights. Always a supporter. For those who aren't familiar with Cameron's work, God, he's got the COO Alliance. For any of you in an operator role, you definitely want to check that out. See if you can be a part of a mastermind that can support you, get those answers, be humbled in the process. And a ton of his literature is available for some of the more smaller businesses. Meeting Sucks is a great piece of literature to just at least bring that communication layer in place. And there's so much more around your vivid vision. You can pick up that copy as well to help you set that in place. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of all the wonderful work that Cameron does. We'll put a link to his website so you can find more. Cameron, thank you once again. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Selling with Love podcast. We have some previous episodes you can tune into right here. And if you prefer the short form content where you get to the point in under 10 minutes, we do have a ton of clips from our best episodes that are being shared on this channel as well. So pick which one supports you the most. And of course, thank you for liking, subscribing, and of course, selling with love.